I once did an interview type show for over a year. Here are my 5 top tips for doing a good interview show. My name is Kerry Green, and I am the Client Happiness Guy at PodcastFastTrack.com, and this is Podcastification. This show is all about podcasting. How to do it, how not to do it, best practices, interesting news items that have to do with the realm of podcasting, and who knows what else. And I'm trying to do it all with a little bit of fun and some information to help you get a show going, keep yours going, or make it better. And if you like what's going on here on the show, I would appreciate it, so appreciate it, if you could leave a rating or review on iTunes. You can find out how to do that at podcastfasttrack.com/review. That's enough of that kind of stuff. Let's get you podcastificated right away. Hey, we're back again. Glad that you're listening with me. Hey, if you do an interview type show for your podcast, you know it's not necessarily natural or intuitive or easy by any stretch of the imagination. There's a reason that people like Larry King and Oprah Winfrey and people like that are good at what they do. It's because it's hard work and they've worked hard at it. Okay. So if you're doing an interview podcast, I'm curious if you could use some interviewing tips. Well, if so, well, you're in luck because I'm going to give you some. And I'm also going to point you to some great resources to help you even more. You see, interviewing seems like a pretty simple thing. You ask questions and you get answers. But there's a lot more that goes into good interviewing than that. And it's not so much about what you know as about what you do. See, I've carried on over 100 interviews in my previous podcast, and I've done other interviews live in various settings. You've got to be able to think on your feet and keep the conversation flowing in a positive direction, even if you have questions prepared ahead of time. So here's my interviewing tips. Number 1, get organized before you contact your guest. Most people you're going to have on your podcast are professionals. They've got a busy life and they shouldn't have to suffer through your lack of organization. So make sure you get your ducks in a row before you reach out to somebody. Your guests will greatly appreciate a handful of things from you before you start. Now, here's my short list. You need to give them clarity on what you want to talk with them about. Okay, make sure they understand the topics, the point, the genre of your conversation. Okay, they need an accurate estimation of the time requirements for the interview. Now, be sure to include time before and after to leave room for technical issues that you might have to get set up and getting to know each other. But they need to know how much time this is going to take them out of their busy day. Okay, they need clarity regarding time zone issues. To avoid these problems altogether, I suggest you use a scheduling app like MeetMe.so or something like that. It's wonderful. They also need to know the technical requirements for a good interview. Encourage them to use headphones, use an external mic, hardwired connection versus wireless, those kinds of things. And if you would like to find a list of those kinds of things you could send to your clients ahead of time, I have one available in my resource center. You can go to podcastfasttrack.com and find it. It's free to download. So you're welcome to tweak that email and send it to every interview guest that you have. Okay, step number 2 for a good interview is set a goal for your interview. In my opinion here, this is just my opinion, too many interviews are rambling romps through memory and anecdotes. Now, that can be fun, but if you want your guest interviews to be tremendously helpful to your audience, I'd suggest you map out the end result you have in mind. Remember Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. He always says, begin with the end in mind. I totally agree. Why are you interviewing this particular person? What do they have that your audience needs? What would be the ideal, best in the world end result to come from your conversation? Answer those questions and you're well on your way to making them happen. And that leads us to step number 3. Think through your questions ahead of time. You see, the questions you develop should put you on a path toward your goal. They're the way you chart the course to the end result that you want. See, I believe bad interviews come from unprepared hosts. Don't be one of those. Here's some places you can start to get the right kinds of questions going. Ask yourself these things. What does this person bring that is of particular importance or interest to my audience? How can I draw that out? What kind of questions would help me do that? Is there something I want to know from this person that nobody has ever thought to ask? I think that one's really key because too often interviews with, say, a well-known person all start to sound the same because you've heard the answers a million times. You need to figure out unique ways to go about that. Okay, think of it this way too. If you could only ask this person one question, what would it be? That's going to give you an idea of what's most important to talk about with that person. Here's another question. Is it really all that important to do the tell us your story bit at the beginning? Maybe it's not, especially if it's a famous person. Everybody may already know their story. You may be able to dispense with that and just get on to the meat of the interview. Is there a way you could approach the interview that would be different from how your guest is typically interviewed? That goes back to the different kinds of questions you want to ask. See, on and on. You get the idea. You want to have an idea where you're going before you start. Nobody ever gets to their destination without knowing how to get there. All right, here's number 4. Know about your guest. One of the most painful things I have ever listened to is a newbie podcaster stumbling through random questions, and they're obviously ignorant about who their guest is. You need to know about your guest. They have a website, don't they? At the very least, browse their website. Read the About page. Look at their books and resources on Amazon. Read one of them if you have the time, especially if you're interviewing them about the book. If they do a podcast or a video cast or a YouTube channel, listen to it or watch at least one episode. You're going to be doing your listeners a favor because knowing about your guest will enable you to know what questions you can ask that are going to be relevant to your audience. You'll be doing the guest a favor because they'll feel your respect for them because of your knowledge of them. I really can't stress this one enough. You have to know about your guest. And here's number 5. It's one that most people don't think of. Relax. Even if you're interviewing the President of the United States, you've got to settle down those nerves. You got to get your wits about you. You need to be your best. You need to be able to respond to answers that you didn't expect. Every bit of that is harder to accomplish mid-interview if you're nervous or scared. So breathe deep and let the tension go. Remind yourself that your guest goes poop in the potty just like you do. There's no reason that you need to be nervous. Okay, now here's some additional how to interview type resources that should help you. Yaro Starak has a great blog post. You can Google it, or I have a link to it on my show notes at podcastfasttrack.com/006. And it's 7 steps to a great podcast interview. Here's another one by Social Media Explorer called The Secret to Great Podcast Interviews. Here's one by the podcast answer man, Cliff Ravenscraft. 22 things to improve your podcast interviews. And then from the folks over at Copyblogger, there's one called Better Podcast Interviews Through 6 Simple Steps of Preparation. And lastly, I'm going to put you onto another podcast. Imagine that. One where Jared Morris over at Copyblogger interviews John Naster. John's a guy who's burst onto the podcasting scene lately with his show, Hack the Entrepreneur. And he does 3 episodes a week. And they're all interview type episodes. And he's learned a lot of lessons the hard way. This particular episode I'm going to point you to, it's actually embedded on my show notes for this episode, podcastfasttrack.com/006. You can play it right there. And it's called Podcast Interview Best Practices from a guy who publishes 3 per week. Okay, do I need to say any more? Are there any other interviewing tips you'd add to the list? Please leave your comments at podcastfasttrack.com/006. I would love to hear from you. And thank you for listening to me. This show is brought to you by Podcast Fast Track, where my team provides professional podcasting services without the time suck. Full production, editing, and show notes all in one monthly subscription package. You can find out more at podcastfasttrack.com. Now go out and make it a podcastificating day. It's actually embedded on my show notes for this episode. 22 interviews to improve your podcast interviews. No, that's not what it is. What is it?